Okay, so today we're going to talk about anthologies.
Anthologies,
How do you
Louise.
feel? How do you feel about anthologies in general? Do you have an opinion?
It's tough to.
It's divisive,
blanket. I don't feel like it's divisive. I would say overall, I love them.
Yeah.
In general, I'm a huge fan. Sometimes they're annoying. Sometimes they feel a little slight. Sometimes they feel a little weak. But I think like, if I had to say one or the other, yay or nay, I'm a big yay. I love anthologies in general.
I think when I was starting out, I was going to do an anthology, and I started to connect to people, and I was like, let's do an anthology. Mm-hmm. And everyone like hit me with all their questions, like, how many copies will I get? When do we pay? And I was like,
logistics.
I was like, fuck it, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it. Too much. You're hurting cats. I don't care. I'm not doing it.
Yeah. So something we've been talking about that would be good to do is to talk to people who put out anthologies, because I am curious about the logistics of the whole thing.
We will. I think that's a great, thread to pull on. Mm-hmm. It's like, let's see what's going on. Like, how do you even start? Like, what do you promise people? What do you ask for people? What about rights usage? Like, how far do you go down that path, right?
Yeah. I mean, I know there's some models, like there's a model that's like everyone gets a certain number of copies of the book.
Right.
And then the person printing them assumes a certain amount of responsibility. But if it's a shitload of contributors, that doesn't work out for the person putting it together at all. Yeah, that could be the whole thing.
Definitely.
So I don't know if it's like $100 to be in the thing or whatever. I'm sure there's no money in being in anthologies, but bless those people who put them out and put the effort into organizing them.
100%.
Aiden from Cold Cube talks about this. Talks about anthologies as community building.
That makes sense.
Which is not the same as like, do you work for exposure? Which is bullshit.
Right.
But like, it's community building in the sense that like whoever's curating this, there's a connection between all the people in the book, whether they've met each other, whether they haven't. Like their work is now kind of spiritually linked in this way.
Yeah.
And there's an art form, I think, to curating a good anthology as well. It's not just slapping a bunch of people together into a thing.
Speaking of which, I'm going to talk about Suspect Device.
Yeah,
Suspect Device, a production of Josh Baer, who I'm a huge fan of.
Who?
Josh Baer, one of my homies.
Never heard of him.
Teacher, I Am War Pubs, copyright 2013. Here's the thing. When I pulled out these Suspect Devices, I realized that all the people that I like in comics have been doing it forever.
Yeah.
So shouts to them, because honestly, like, they've been making comics for so long. And me, as somebody who just showed up, I'm like, it's a good reminder that, like, perseverance, hard work, dedication to the craft makes a difference, and it pays off. It's like I'm seeing all these people blow up, and it's like, well, that's why they've been grinding it out. So
yeah, it's funny though, because it doesn't automatically pay off.
No, absolutely not.
You got to put the work in, but you also have to be like patient and just like
Johnny.
Man, you could spot a Johnny Ryan drawing from 400 miles
anywhere,
away.
Yeah. And
but you got to be patient. You got to put the work in. But like, success is not going to happen overnight. It also might not happen in your life at all. So you got to commit to the fact that like this is just a thing you want to do.
100%.
And success is relative. Obviously, it's not a financial success. But.
And you might be making books for an audience that hasn't been born yet, and you have to be okay with that going in.
Yeah.
So this Caitlin McGurk piece is crazy. God.
Wait, so tell us the premise of this anthology.
So the premise of Suspect Device is Josh sends you a piece of paper that has one clipped out panel at the beginning and one clipped out panel at the end of someone of like, Harold Gray or Ernie Bushmiller, like a classic comic. A classic comic. You get one panel at the beginning and then an empty page except for the panel at the end. And then it's your job as the cartoonist to fill in the in-betweens.
That's such a great idea.
It's amazing. And so this book has that in, every page starts off with, and I've seen, I've taught alongside Josh. Actually, we taught a summer workshop uptown at Uptown Stories, and he did this exercise with the kids, and the kids loved it too.
Wow, Basil Wolverton? Who's that?
Oh, you know what?
Louise Berger?
Yeah, Louise Berger. There's a great roster here. I mean, I was saying before, but like, look at those names.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. I mean, I'll just let you soak it in,
Bort? Who's Bort?
Bort? I've seen Bort before.
I just think of the Simpsons Bort.
Oh, right. It's like a who's who.
We're out of Bort license.
That's the cool thing about Bayer too. It's like seeing this time capsule of everyone who's tabling at that time. Like, it really does feel like it's the entire indie comics community.
Yeah. Wow, look at this. Yeah, and I guess that's something that is cool about participating now and trying to do this show like this too is we're trying to like showcase a moment in time of the people that are making this stuff now
and show kind of what's come before.
Yeah.
I mean,
and that is an amazing thing that anthologies do also is they capture something, whether they're all contemporaries or not. It captures something together.
100% time capsule action.
Yeah.
Well, I recognized it immediately from the lettering. I was like, this is Gabby.
Oh yeah, totally. And one of the things I love about having anthologies too is that, as you know, when I pick them up, I might not know all the contributors, and I put it on the shelf, and then 10 years later, I might pick up that anthology again and be like, holy shit, this was that person who is now someone I'm familiar with.
Right.
But at the time, it was just someone in a book. And then you can look at their old work, you can make the comparison. Maybe their work looks exactly the same.
I just love they're just from two totally different comic strips, and where they go with it.
That's a great idea.
Whether it's the Phantom or Little Orphan Annie or Nancy or Popeye we've seen.
Yeah.
We're just like seeing this wild...
Wait, what is this like really?
Like diaspora.
Sorry, what is this? Who is that like really? What is it? Who is this?
That's a good question. So page 40, they do a good job of keeping it all in line here. Muriel Bellini. I'm not familiar with Muriel Bellini.
But this is awesome.
Oh, there it is right there. Yeah, 2013.
I'm gonna have to look that up. I really like this drawing style.
It's very cool. You know, I think what draws me to all this work is that I yearn to have a looser style. And I think, you know, all my work up till now has been development. I feel like I haven't even bloomed yet. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like this coming, but I don't know what it is yet that is coming. So
yeah, I mean, it might be worth. Sometimes it might be worth just like going way out there. You know, draw with your other hand. Pick a random thing that you don't usually draw with, and like just see what happens.
Yeah. Take it far out, like that drawing.
Man, these are great.
Yeah, this rules.
I think it's rare to see an anthology that's this high concept. Like sometimes they're a lot of times they're thematically related, where it's like, you know, we're talking about body horror or something like that. But it's rare to see something that's this specific, and it's almost like a challenge. It's like a cartooning challenge.
Yeah. Really great. I mean, I've been getting into these suspect devices more. And
how many of them are there? Do you know?
I'm not sure exactly how many there are, actually. That's a very good question. I'll have to ask Josh. I have a few of them because at one point I was just like, one of everything, please. So, yeah, I'll bring some more out next time.
Cool. Yeah, I'm going to check those out. I have this Freak book, which I got last year at Partners and Son, which I don't know if this has a theme or not, but
Oh, look at that.
Look at that.
Speak of the bear and he appears.
Speak of the bear devil. All over the place. The style of work in this, I mean, look at these two pages next to each other.
Fantastic.
Like, wildly different styles. I don't know if there is a central through line to this book or not. I've read it through a couple times, and I can't pick up on anything thematically specifically, but really, really cool, wild, weird stuff, like borderline illegible contents page.
Who put this together?
This is put together by... I followed them on Instagram, and I can't remember their name, but we'll look it up.
Okay.
Where
did you get your hands on
the screen? I got this at Partners and Son.
Oh, okay.
I had seen it floating around. I had seen it floating around Instagram, and I thought I'd pick it up. It's not usually like... This is not a thing that would necessarily jump out at me, except for the fact that it's gigantic. Like, this is a massive hardcover anthology. I was like, this seems like an impossible like object to curate, especially since it's not published by one of like the big people or whatever. Like this really weird mixture of just like raw drawing,
all kinds of media too.
It's all kinds of media. I don't even know how to describe this. Yeah, photographs. There's some really weird like digital stuff in here.
This is its own YouTube channel right here. Just go artist by artist, and you could just
completely. And so yeah, it's another kind of like. I could imagine this being like if I ran a comic book shop and somebody came in and was like, "What's cool right now?" I would point them at this book and just be like, "Get a Freak book, get
like an almanac."
Yeah, read the whole thing, mark the pages that you're interested in, and then look those artists up on Instagram. It does have all the artists here. It's just like really, really hard to read.
Yeah, it's hard to see this. Yeah,
which I also kind of like. It
makes you work for it.
Yeah, it makes you work for it, and it treats the title page as like its own kind of artwork. And then this guy like sucking his own dick. I don't really know what else to say about this book other than I find it totally delightful to read. It's really out there. It's super Jasper juvenile. It's really out there. It's really adult oriented. But just as speaking of like capturing a moment in time of like who's making work, it came with this cool like insert thing. I don't know.
Yeah, wow. There's a lot of work on
it's
this
awesome
here.
stuff, and it's really hard to summarize, which is another tough thing about talking about anthologies is like, what do you say about a book like this other than like you should go check out, there's an interview in here with some guy.
That's cool.
Like what do you say about something like this as a way to like review it or pitch it or something? I don't know. It's just an amazing collection of stuff.
I think it's interesting because so often with anthologies, they're like, this is our theme.
So good.
And then you have anthologies that there is no theme. It's just everyone you like. Or like, you're kind of like, we got a bus. Everybody get on the bus. We're going to a comics party.
We're going to Art Town.
Exactly. And it's just like a bunch of artists get on a bus and go to Woodstock.
Sure. So yeah, edited and designed by Alexei Zarin.
Cool.
Individual artwork rights reserved for the artist. So I guess it's one of those things where it's like
You own your own
you
work.
own your stuff. Yeah.
Coming out of Providence, Rhode Island. Pig Roast Publishing.
Big Rose Publishing. There you
Okay.
go.
Cool.
But I highly recommend Freak Book. If
Freak
you don't know where to start and you walk into an indie comic shop, ask if they have this book, and it will point you in the right direction.
So I brought this Anthology of the Mime by Tommy Musturi. So this is a one-person anthology, and in it, Tommy is doing every kind of comics making style that their hands can muster. And you see this.
And are they other people's styles, or is this just like are they aping people? In
I
this
think
book?
some yes and some no. I think some of it's aping other people, and sometimes they're just aping a concept or like an art movement. It seems to be like everything that they could comes to mind. Now, a lot of these pieces were from other anthologies and then reassembled here for this book. So you can see an artist who is, I love to use this word, restless.
Yeah.
You can see them exploring every kind of style. Why be confined by one style? Why speak one language if you can speak them all?
I agree, but it is easier said than done.
For sure.
You know, like if I sit down in my sketchbook and I try to, and I say to myself, I'm going to do something that's different from what I do. It's not. Like whatever. It might be like 5% different, but it's not like it's really something like this. I don't think I'm capable of doing.
Well, this is like early burns.
No, I mean something like this book.
Yeah.
Something like this
Oh, I
book,
see.
I don't think it's something I'm capable of doing. I don't think I'm like physically and cognitively possible for me to work in this many styles. So this is like astonishing to me. This is all one person.
Yeah, so this is one person doing a billion styles. And now, when you get to the end of this book, you see more.
This looks like Jock. Did you read any of those Vertigo books that that guy Jock draws?
I don't know.
This is so wildly. I'm like dazzled by it.
Yeah, so that's why I brought it. I thought it's a wonderful conversation piece, and it kind of flew under the radar because Tommy's Finnish. He's from Finland, if I'm not mistaken. And so all of these styles deliver you to the back where they've created this prison of style and an escape plan. What's the word I'm looking for? Essay.
Manifesto?
Yeah, kind of like a manifesto. It talks about how, and I mean, you see the different styles employed here, right? It talks about how style essentially is a kind of bland mechanism of capitalism. That they need it to be clearly identifiable and a product because then it's easier to sell.
What else we got?
Mirror
there?
Mirror?
Yeah, Mirror Mirror 2 is cool. I don't have Mirror Mirror 1. I love how dark this book is. It's like horror related, I guess, is sort of the theme.
Cool.
Noel Frybert, Laura
Yeah,
Lands, Clive Barker.
Wow, look at this lineup.
I think Frybert was part of organizing this. Aiden Koch,
Cool.
Heather
all the
Benjamin, Celine Loop. I really like Celine's work. They
Loop means wolf in French, right?
could be.
I might be wrong.
But really, really great drafts person. And the list goes on. Johnny Negron, Al Columbia has got a bunch of work in this.
A lot of
Josh
work.
Simmons,
11
Julia
pages.
Graffair, Renee French, Dame Darcy. I mean, another one that's just all over the map. So talk about
There's your
style. Another guy whose work is instantly recognizable from 500 miles away, I think, is Noel Freibert's work. Although Noel Freibert has also worked in several different styles. But this particular one is instantly idiosyncratic, I think.
It's good to see that the restlessness of the artist like settles on something occasionally. Mm-hmm. Oh, cool! Just a disembodied little sex toy there.
Yeah, all kinds of stuff going on here. This one's really dark, but in a really like affecting way. Like it's the tone of reading this book feels like you're in like a place you're really not supposed to be in. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, we are in a place we're not supposed to be.
But like it's one of those things where it's like this book feels forbidden in a really cool way.
Yeah, I like that, like pixel.
This I think is this Johnny Negron working in a weird kind of medium?
It reminds me of that comic Static. Did you ever read that?
I don't think so.
The first digitally illustrated comic.
Oh yes, I
It's
have
just
actually.
like
Yeah,
that.
this is Cillian's work. But yeah, really raw, really super like I don't know what you call it, not safe for work, adult oriented.
Yeah, I mean, it has the vibe of a European anthology, right?
Yeah, but you know, a lot of genitals, a lot of like disembodied stuff.
Because again, Americans are afraid of their bodies. So
there's Simon Hanselman stuff in here. This Simon Hanselman brushwork, I think, is really cool.
I love that. Yeah, that's beautiful.
There's a few old zines of his that are of theirs that is like
art.
Yeah, it's just awesome that are drawn in this style. I think there's one in the Stems and Seeds book, but yeah, it's like
style.
it's so different from the Megan Mugg stuff now, which is so tight, which I love. I love Simon Hanselman, but this brush stuff is really interesting.
I would like to hang out with Hanselman a little bit and get a better gauge of their vibe, you know, because it's not fair that I would only be able to piece together what I think about them through their work, you know, because artists aren't only their work. Right?
Yeah, well, they've done a lot of interviews and stuff. I've definitely listened to them talk. They're really, really, really funny and sharp, and just seem like really friendly. This is the Julia Grafrere stuff, which is really cool because it's not specifically comics, I guess.
Well, words and arts and letters.
Yeah, sure. I like stuff that shows up in an anthology that you were talking about, like having like a visual break. This book doesn't it never hits a point where you're like, oh, I've hit the noise point. Like there's enough visual kind of like moments to mix it up in the format a little bit.
And that's good from the design point. I feel like as a designer, if you're laying out this book and you give us intermissions by giving us like big clean paintings or like big open spaces in black and things like this. It's like the open spaces really help refresh the palette.
Totally. So yeah, really well curated. I thought Mirror Mirror 2 was great. Published by 2D Cloud, which
problematic.
People have feelings about.
I don't know all the scuttlebutt, but I do know that 2D Cloud has gotten themselves into some hot water with some certain choices they've made.
Yeah,
which
I don't know enough about it to speak on it, but
same.
Do your own research, I guess.
Yeah, there's gossip out there if you want to find it. What should we talk about next? I brought this all Cowboy Hank zine panique.
Zine panique.
Yeah, it celebrates 40 years of Cowboy Hank. I mean,
which we talked about Hank briefly.
We saw the smoke signal.
That's right.
But we get a lot of heads in this one.
Man, I kind of want to do some Hank fan art.
We gotta, Jasper. We gotta talk about Jasper and Evan. I would really like to get Evan. Evan Salazar's
I tabled next
work.
to Evan at PCX. He was super friendly.
We got to hang out after CXC or one of the ones. Anyway, Evan's great. One of the Gutter Boys showing up in here. Cam the man. We'll talk about some Steely Dan. Alex is in here. Michael Kennedy. We've talked before. Rob's the homie. So many great creators in this. And if I didn't mention your name, it's only because we haven't met yet, but we will.
Oh, this is Banu.
Yeah, Banu.
I love their work, and to see them
beautiful.
drawing Cowboy Hank is really wild. Just like incredibly expressive. Almost, I always think of it as like Ren and Stimpy. That sounds pejorative. I don't mean that in a negative way, but it has these completely exaggerated and almost abstracted forms. I have their book here somewhere. But they have a new one coming out, I think, from Fantagraphics, so I'm really excited to see more of their work.
This is probably some of the first Jasper we've looked at on the channel.
I don't have much Jasper.
I have a couple.
Actually, Jasper's in Freak Book.
Yeah, I saw Jasper in Freak Book.
Freak Book.
It's not book, it's buck.
Book.
Right?
Yeah.
Is it buck?
Freak
Book.
Book.
Okay. I don't know what's going on.
Book.
Here's Evan. One of the things I love about Evan is his Instagram handle is Evan Salad Bar.
Salad Bar, yeah.
I remember liking that before I even knew that he made comics. I was just like, this is hilarious, and then, instantly got a follow.
Yeah.
This is the English translation sheet.
Oh, interesting.
So there's a little type up of
there was a thread. I think I might have started this thread. I don't remember. There's a thread on the Bubbles message board about what's the best way to translate comics. And I think my feeling is that the translation sheet is not the best way to do it. I hate reading comic with a translation sheet. I really hate it.
Yeah, it's not great, but it's cost effective, right?
It is, totally.
Yeah.
The only other way to do it is, I think, to just put the translation under the panel. But even that, it's like I have a really hard time reading these comics in other languages. I'd rather it be silent or not read it, honestly.
Yeah.
I have this Peow, this old Peow anthology that I really like. This was the first Peow thing. Did that just honk right when you said Peow?
I think I said Peow and the cat said meow.
Yeah. I think this was the first Peow thing I picked up. I got this at Bergen Street Comics, RIP, a long ass time ago. And this type of, the feeling of this cover is something I'm always trying to recreate in my covers in some way. I just love the amount of information on here.
I like how dreamy the clouds are.
Yeah, like this is an object I want to pick up.
It looks like an ice cream sundae, honestly.
Yeah.
Like it's vanilla and strawberry and ice cream and like bits of cake.
And again, you can see the kind of registration marks and stuff. This is Riso printed.
I like a handmade book.
So we got, in this we have, I don't know how to say this, Stathis Semberlitis.
Oh, that's very good on the last name. No, yeah, nailed it.
Ren McDonald and Matt Sheehan.
Cool.
Stathis' work is something that I feel like we should dig deeper into because I have a bunch of it and I think it's really, really cool.
I'd love to, yeah.
So we can spend more on that next time. But just a beautifully designed book. I mean, Peow I guess just, yeah.
I like they give him flags.
Peow shut down and just this week was like, Peow 2 is coming out. I don't know, I guess they're doing stuff again.
Good.
This is 2013.
I was about to just pour one out for all the publishers that rule that we don't have anymore.
Yeah.
Like, Koyama, Peow.
Yeah. Ad House.
Anyway. Man, I love Pitzer. He is
he's
gem.
a G.
He is fantastic.
So Stathis's work is so awesome because you can spot a million people that have read Mobius comics before, and there's maybe 1% of them are doing something interesting with that material and that influence, and Stathis definitely is, where it's like the laziest review of this is like, oh, they like Mobius comics or whatever, but like they really have become completely distinct on their own. Like it's a kind of vaguely political, but also raw sci-fi, super imaginative, and just to me just like astonishing textures, like some really delightful tactile feeling. Things that have volume, things that have surface.
Yeah, like the whole book is made out of stone.
This one might actually directly be a Mobius homage with this falling astronaut.
It's also like destroying icons, clearly.
Yeah, and this kind of shape, this stuff is just awesome to me. Anyway, their stuff I think is instantly recognizable. Super cool.
Sick.
And sort of the opposite of the Tommy approach. Like their stuff is aggressively just this drawing style. It's like that I've seen.
It's both minimalist and textured at the same time, right? Like minimal lines and then added texture. It's pretty cool.
So we'll talk more about that another time. But Ren McDonald, super friendly dude, was New York local. I think might still be. I'm not totally sure.
Yeah, I was gonna say, where did we lose McDonald to?
I always see Ren. Ren is a hardcore like show goer.
Oh, okay, cool.
Like that dude is everywhere. Rizzo.
I love characters like this. The the unknown gunman kind of like, right? The lone cowboy.
I don't think there is a through line to this anthology. I think it, unless I'm wrong, it has like a sci-fi bent, which I think is kind of just a loose thing. But it works. There's something intangible. There's something unidentifiable about why this works. Why these three stories work well together, and it might just be people that they like or thought were cool or something.
Yeah, I mean this work is beautiful. I love this.
Yeah, Matt Sheehan's awesome. I think another person who works in kind of multiple styles.
It's wonderful.
But these kind of pen, I don't know if this is pencil or just kind of a soft pen or something. I love how that translates to the Rizzo inks. Looks really cool.
It looks like a wash, the pink.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just really wonderful cartooning and a cool introduction. Like the second I picked up this anthology, I was like, I got to get everything that Peow has ever done. It has that feeling of like, it's like a showcase. It's like going to see a band.
Yes.
It's like seeing a band open for a band you're going to see, and you're like, who the fuck is this band? They only played 4 songs, but I'm buying everything at the merch table or whatever.
I love when the opener outshines the headliner.
Yeah, or at least it just gets you excited to like. It gives you like doorways to go down, right? It makes you feel like there's. Right. It's that feeling of like there's more out there than I'm aware of. That's good.
Oh yeah. Which brings me to I brought this Spread Love Comics. Spread Love is a zine out of Canada, put together by Uncle Gil. And Uncle Gil is doing their thing. They put out 20, this is 21. I think they're up to 23 now. So wow, Uncle Gil will just drop a email in your inbox and it'll be like, hey, you want to contribute a page of comics to this thing I'm doing?
Hey.
I'll send you some copies.
Huh, okay.
And I was like, all right, yeah.
So wait, so that's their model? Is
that's
like,
their model. Just
we're gonna sell.
I got 2 copies. So whatever.
Dick knows.
For me, it was about just being part of an ongoing community kind of thing.
Yeah,
I wanted to try it out.
I don't think I've been in an anthology. I did a 1-page for Comics Blogger, which was really fun, which he paid me for, which was great. And then I also got, I think, 5 contributor copies. So it was.
There it is. So like my thing with this was like the spread love is all about like erotic or not safe for work art, which isn't really my bread and butter. So what I did was I did a thing where your phone is assaulting you the way New York City does, like standing real close to you on the train, always poking you, following you around, being way too close to you, touching you improperly. And it's your phone doing that, and you end up in bed with them anyway.
Yeah.
And they're not even paying attention to you. They're on their phone. Yeah. And you're just like, what did I do? I don't know. This came to me, and I was like, all right, cool. I didn't even want to talk about it, my work, but I brought this because this is something happening now. And I think it's important to show where we've been and where we are and maybe where we're going and just like all a mix of everything. So
yeah, totally.
I brought this for that reason. I love this style. This is really funny. This character.
Yeah, it's like
so foul.
Someone who's been reading a bunch of Dave Cooper stuff.
yeah, exactly. Anyway, spread love. Check them out.
Uncle Gil. I don't know that name. I've never heard of Uncle Gil.
You know who does a bunch of work for this is Pete Bagg, actually.
Oh, interesting.
Pete Bagg's done a number of spread love covers, and they're amazing.
Huh.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Check that out.
What else you got?
All right.
We'll do a couple more, and then we'll get out of here.
We'd be remiss if we didn't address, like, the anthology.
Yeah, do it.
Kramer's... I always called this Kramer's ergo.
Yeah, it's ergo.
Although some people say ergot.
Do they?
I don't know. It's one of those things where, like, once someone says it a different way, you're like, that's wrong. Wait a minute, maybe I'm wrong. And then it makes your whole brain falls apart.
Also, I've learned, like, not to correct people's pronunciation because pronunciation is rooted in white supremacy and, like, racism, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you're right.
Because it's like, they came up with the language, so they protected it. And if you didn't do everything to the letter, you were viewed as, like, an outsider.
Totally.
You know?
Yeah, for sure.
So it's classist.
Yep.
Grammar is a classist myth, and like all to the cringe. Oh, did you hear all the writers just cringe? Like Joe would be so mad at. He's gonna listen to this and just be burning up. So we're talking about Kramer's ergot.
Yeah. So maybe we'll talk more about these another time. There's
there's a bunch of them.
8 of these, I think, 7 or 8. There's Kevin right there. We're just talking about
look at that.
But flip through. I mean, this is do you want to talk about your experience with Kramer's?
Oh, I mean, I have no experience with Kramer's. All these Kramers came out when I was not paying any attention to comics. So I'm new to comics, as I say almost every video. I mean, I knew some people, right? Some things transcend the medium, which even when I wasn't in the scene, I would still pick up stuff and know about certain creators. But all this Kramer stuff is a wreck your cred moment for me because it all came out when I was not in comics. Like I wasn't in the zone. I didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
I wasn't paying any attention.
Yeah, and so this I read this particular book when I worked at Blick on Bond Street.
You worked at Blick on Bond?
Yeah, in 2005. That was like when I or 2005 and 2006.
I probably interacted with you at Blick.
You probably did.
Yeah. Whoa, that's so
where
weird.
they fun fact, that's where they shot the pottery scene of Ghost in the basement.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Basement of Blick is on Bond Street is terrifying. That's not there anymore. Blick has moved around the corner. But the basement is terrifying. It goes on forever.
And so you were at Blick.
So yeah, I was working at Blick, and they still have bookshelves, I think, at Blick, but they had a copy of this on the shelf, which at this point is like insane because this book it goes for high prices on eBay and stuff.
Look at you, you're book rich.
Quite the collector's item. It's like
beautiful.
Paper Rad, like all these
so
like
cool.
Ridiculous, obscure heads are in this. I don't know why Blick had a copy of this on the shelf, but anyway.
Well, because one of the artists probably brought it there and forgot it there, right?
No, it was for sale.
Oh, for sale.
I bought it there. I bought this book at
there.
Blick. But I read most of it while I was like not working because like I was
see.
Sometimes there was downtime, and I picked this book up.
This is great.
The first thing I read was the David Heatley book because it had like people fucking in it, and I was like, oh, interesting. And
those tiny little panels,
so tiny, but it, like this to me, it has like people have made fun about this comic. I think Johnny Ryan has a comic in another Kramer's making fun of this comic.
Okay.
But as a 21-year-old, I found this comic to be like really revealing, and I was like, oh, this was at the beginning of my I was maybe like 2 years into learning about underground comics and stuff like that. And so this book to me was like this entry point. It was like this gateway into all this different stuff. And this was the first thing I read, and I probably sat in a corner like hiding in the picture frames of Blick, like reading this whole thing, because it takes you like 20 minutes to read this whole story. It's a meaty one, and it's just about like early embarrassing sexual experiences and stuff. But it was like, I just found it very like very revealing. Yeah, but I mean that's what all comics are about, sort of like around this. There's so many of that, but for some reason this one was just like, this just feels like a person telling me a story, or I'm listening to a story I'm not supposed to be hearing. Anyway.
It also looks pretty. What is this? Is this video games?
Yeah, so it starts off as a kid.
Oh, okay.
And this is part of it too. Is like it's his entire sexual history. So it starts when he's a kid and goes up to when he like meets his wife.
I see.
But yeah, I mean, stuff you might not be able to get away with now. Honestly, you might not be able to publish now. He talks about like doing stuff as a kid with people he knew. Anyway, Jordan Crane, Kevin Huizenga, everyone is in this book. And so if you think about this too, when this came out, people who were heads and going to shows and stuff were probably familiar with some of these, but to look at it now is like this would be an impossible thing to curate now,
right?
And to make
it's
now.
Also, again, we were talking about anthologies as time capsules, and this definitely is that, right?
Brinkman, yeah, and it's also historically it's a cool kind of overlap of like self-publishing stuff. There's a bunch of Fort Thunder stuff. Sammy Harcum is in charge of this whole project. Not in charge, but I guess like editing.
I mean, wonderful production value too.
The paper stock is great. The cover is like this wild, like it's got like bumpy stuff on it. Is this like some legendary CF comics are in the different Kramers? Like,
what I do know about the Kramers is that each book kind of takes on a different form, right? Like it's almost like some of them are bigger than others. They're different formats. They're like different levels of production, right? We'll get into Kramers another time because I feel like it's like an iceberg, right? Like we've just talked about the tip of the iceberg with no real direction or order in mind. I love this.
So it's like such an audacious thing.
It's very silkscreen. It reminds me of silkscreen, but it's also like this is that palette cleanse we were talking about. I love it. Yeah. It's like almost when you are turning the page and it goes, like it's just like this moment of joy.
Yeah, and it's pre Rizzo boom, so that stuff's a little more commonplace.
Very
now,
cool.
I guess.
Very very cool.
Yeah, Kramer's great. We'll dig into that another time.
What else is there left to talk about? I brought a Rust Belt review.
Yeah, there's a bunch of these.
We have a bunch. Yeah. Bring yours up. I just brought one, but it looks like we have. Oh, we got the whole roll. So
this is different from what we've been talking about, which I think is cool, is where there are stories in these. There might be 5, but this one story in here might continue in this, and then skip one or something. Okay. Or there might be one that's in all of them.
It's like how I do them.
So yeah, it's like it's not all the same contributors for each one, but there are continuing stories that go through.
Let's look at these contributors, because if they're consistent, which I was hoping as I flipped them over,
and I think
they are. Audra's been in all of them,
and I think she's collected the ones that are in this into a book. I think,
which they're producing, right?
I believe so.
Yeah. Wow, look at that list. That is impressive. I love the use of bold color, too. That's something that I like.
Yeah, the cover's great. It has like a nice matte finish on it.
It's all the heads. I mean, so whereas Kramer's was this generation, now, I'm not comparing these two things, but I'm saying, like, again, I'm going back to the theme of time capsule. It's like, that was the time capsule from this generation, and look at this time capsule from this generation, right?
This is also regional, too, right? Some of this is people in a different area.
It's like Midwestern.
Well, yeah, but if you look at the list,
it's called Rust Belt, so.
Right? But these are not East Coast names for the most part. I'm familiar with.
Well, I would imagine that they're from the Rust Belt.
Yeah,
right. Which is that? Yeah, like Midwest vibe.
Yeah, so
I recognize a bunch of the Chicago names.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's fine.
But yeah.
I was just thinking out loud.
Tell me more.
I'm just trying to figure out like another thing that's cool about anthologies is you can define a scene a little bit, or not define, but you can start to draw boundaries
piece it together.
Piece it together.
Well, somebody on the internet criticized me for interrupting you, so now I'm self-conscious that I interrupt too much.
No, it's fine. I feel like this is how conversations work.
It is. No, I know. I don't think you're upset about it. I just know that like if somebody makes a comment, then I'm gonna forever think about it because that's the way my brain works. But I'm just, you know what? The reason why I mention it is more like because now this thing takes on that like two-way mirror thing where there's like other people interacting with us now that we put this out. It's strange. It's a strange phenomenon.
Yeah, that's why you keep a conversation. I don't give a shit.
Absolutely. But I mean, I'm also just thinking out loud. And I grew up in a place where everybody just was yelling at each other all the time. Not in a bad way, not in like an aggressive way, but it was like that's how conversations worked.
Yeah.
They were like this raucous dance where everybody was just shouting out the stuff they were talking about and thinking about. Let's look at some of it. Well, it's not. It's just. It's more just like a style. You know, they were European. They're Italian. So Italians are just like... Rah, 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 rah. So that's Sweater, right?
Yeah,
I recognize sweater from the internet and from Puppy Night, put out by Silver Sprocket.
Yep. And some of these are ongoing things. And it's a risky thing, I guess, to do as an anthology. Because if you go to your local comic shop and they only have issue 3 of this anthology, do you pick it up? You know,
right?
Are you going to read a random chapter of a story you've
I
never heard
would.
before?
I don't care about sequential order. People come up to the table and they're like, "Well, which one should I get?" I'm like, "Any of them. Get literally any of them."
Well, this is really nice
because you'll know if you like it.
Inserted, pasted in.
Yeah, they tip in the book and then they're in an article about how to make your own zines. I love that.
It's great. But it's a cool move. I agree. I don't mind reading like chapter 7 of something. Because I think it's fun. It's almost like watching like a random episode of a TV show that you've stumbled
across. That, yeah.
But I think just as a publishing move, it's a risky endeavor because not everybody feels that way.
I like that they put the name of the people at the bottom of the page. I think that's clever.
Yeah, it's great. I haven't read 4 or 5. I've read all the other ones, and they're delightful. And every time one comes out, I read them. I read it as one object, like cover to cover, and then I'll go back and kind of fill in some of the gaps, and then try to. Sometimes I'll pick like one story and be like, I'll read this one and this one and this, and like just read the one chapter from each one in sequence. So when you have all of them, you almost have different ways to engage with these different volumes as you read through them. It makes it kind of fun to revisit them.
And from a design standpoint, I really like the title treatment. It makes it seem like a literary journal. I mean, the name does too imply that, right?
Totally.
Employing the review. Employing
the
the review as part of the title, but it works. I mean, I think it achieves what it's setting out for in that regard. I think that's great. We looked at a lot of anthologies, and I think that there'll be more to come. We do these kind of themed episodes, and we know we barely scratch the surface, right?
Yeah, totally. And there's always, like, anthologies I think are really having a moment right now, too. Partly because of this community building aspect. I think, like, people are excited to share work with each other, and they're able to connect with each other more easily than ever before. Like, I don't know how you were able to put together a book like this in 2003. You know, whereas like now you can just DM all your favorite illustrators and be like, "Hey, you want to be in an anthology?" Or something?
I don't know how anybody puts together.
Not that it's easy, but it would have been way harder 20 years ago.
I like that I get to meet a lot of different artists at these shows, and some of them are chill, but some of them are not. And so, like, I remember when I first started, I was like, "I'm going to do an anthology," and then immediately was like, "I'm not doing an anthology."
Fuck that, yeah.
I just it's too much. Like I was going to pay everyone in contributor copies. I wasn't going to make any money. I was literally trying to promote their work. And say, like, we're stronger together. Let's get all of us together, and we'll our reach will grow.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people do that, right? Like, we see the administrator or the organizer of the anthology putting their own work in as well. I think that's part of the appeal. It's like, well, I'm going to take this on because I want my work to be alongside these other people's work.
And I don't have any beef with that.
No, I don't think that's a good idea.
Yeah, I don't think that's shameless or anything. I think it's really cool. And it shows that you feel like a part of that community. Like you're not above it. You're not gatekeeping it. You're not curating it. You are participating in the community.
Yeah, you're creating it. And I agree. I think it's good to put in that effort and to build those bridges.
Yeah,
I mean that's what the show's about, right?
Totally. Exactly.
What do we want to celebrate? We want to celebrate comics. We want to celebrate people.
We just did
people.
We just did a visual anthology of anthologies.
Wow, it's so meta.
Damn.
Meta world peace.
Represent.
Well, yeah, from the comics people camp to your wherever you're watching this.
Yeah.
Toodles.
Love y'all.
Yeah.
Peace. Toodles also.
Also toodles.